All right, all right, all right. What is and what isn't powerful communication? So I really want to talk through what the contrasts look like when it comes to our communications. And again, keeping in mind that it could be verbal, nonverbal, meaning, your posture, your behavior, your stance, your body motion, whatever the case might be. And it's important for you to understand that you're sending out as many signals for interpretation in your nonverbal as you are in your verbal. So we have verbal, nonverbal, and written. And I really want to make sure that you understand simplistically what it powerful communication is and what it is not, because a lot of people confuse the two, believe it or not, especially when it comes to when someone's told, well, you need to speak with authority, or you need to really, declare your communication style or your leadership style. And then therefore they think, okay, well, then I need to be, kind of more aggressive, or I need to be louder, or I need to insert myself more often as opposed to just when it's appropriate, so forth and so on. So I thought a brief discussion in regards to what is and isn't powerful communications would be very helpful in understanding just what you may or may not be doing that's causing you frustration and aggravation and stress and anxiety and overwhelm when it comes to whether or not you're getting your point across clearly, whether or not you're influencing the people, places, or things that are around you that you need to kind of move, whether or not you're getting people to be responsive to you, whether or not um, you're able to state and position your opinion or your decision or an opportunity that you have in a way that's going to get buy-in, agreement, and confirmation from other people, and so much more. Communication is all about bonding and building relationships, as we discussed, and really kind of ensuring that those around you, both ones you're familiar with and ones you're complete strangers with, they like, know, trust, and do for you in such a way that you're able to get the outcome that you're looking for from that communication. Because every communication should have a purpose, right? And therefore, along with that purpose is an objective, a desired outcome, a goal, a target that you're aiming for. And therefore, you want to ensure that you're setting yourself up, even when it's a last minute, ad hoc, improvisational type of conversation, or even maybe a debate or argument. You want to ensure that, one, it should be a win-win for both parties or all parties involved. And at the same time, you should have a purpose, a reason, a why as to being engaged in that discussion. And therefore you want to set yourself up for success in, even in the heat of the moment, you're processing, what is it that I need to be doing, what is it I need to be saying, how do I need to be saying it, what should I not be doing in order to get the outcome that I want. All right, so let's discuss the what is and isn't of powerful communications. So I wanted to start with this very simple cartoon, and I'll give you a second to read it. But the gentleman on the left is saying, you need to make better your method of talking. And the one on the right is saying, do you mean I need to improve my communication skills? And so, what I want you to look at and gain from this simple cartoon is at least three what are at least three things that you can pick out when it comes to what communication is and what it isn't. So if you looked at this, you might say, well, the gentleman on the left certainly, has some confusion in his language, in the choice of words that he's using. He's not making complete sense, which then could cause frustration and confusion and stress for the other party. All right, and yet at the same time, he's adding to that confusion and frustration and maybe stress level, because he's then non-verbally, he's giving a gesture that can often be seen as offensive or create barriers or walls to go up for the other party, because it looks like as if he's kind of just telling him or demanding him. So even his nonverbal, let alone his verbal, is creating an opportunity for confusion, frustration, stress, anxiety, so forth and so on. And then the receiver of the information is not only positioning his response in a very kind of complete, formal, appropriate way. Do you mean I need to improve my communication skills? But there's a number of other things built into that. One, he's asking a question for clarification. So that confusion, frustration, maybe stress that the communicator, initiated, the receiver saying, okay, wait a minute, I need to ensure that I fully understand what it is that he's saying. And therefore he is asking a clarifying question to get to that point and to really understand the other person's position. At the same time, he is what you might call mirroring the other person. And he is kind of, not only clarifying, but he's repeating what the other party's saying for both maybe his understanding, his own understanding, but also to get the clarification and full understanding from the other receiver. So there's a lot going on in this very simple, cartoonish stream of communication that could be taken and received in very different ways, and could create either an exasperated version of the conversation, meaning it gets all of a sudden blown out of proportion, especially when it comes to the nonverbal, let alone the kind of confusing statement or comment that's being made. And yet, fortunately, the other party is ensuring that they have a clear understanding of what it is that they're trying to say. And then I would even add a fourth. I would even add the fact that the dynamic of this conversation is kind of portrayed or illustrated by the coffee mug. So the coffee mug, it could be in a restaurant, it could be at a Starbucks, it could be in an office, it could be at the water cooler or a coffee station. So it could be where their environment is also influencing how the communication is going to play out. So you certainly want to be paying attention to all the various cues that you're getting when it comes to your communications, verbally, non-verbally, and even in writing. In this case, there's not anything writing, but there's a lot of verbal and non-verbal. All right, but let's look at what communication truly is meant to be and is, and then what it is not. And I want you to, as we're talking through these, I want you to envision the last several conversations that you've had, written or verbal, and kind of put yourself in, whatever that communication was, as well as the receiver, and kind of, really try to understand how might they have received your information, how might they have understood it, how might they have interpreted it, how might they have it perceived it. Because remember, perception is reality. So you might have a perception of someone or something, and that's your reality. I mean, you believe it is what it is because that's your perception of it. Well, really consider the fact that when you communicate something to another party, such as this gentleman communicating that kind of wonky sentence, that statement to the other person, that other person now has a perception of that individual, which is their reality. And their perception right now, at least in this, is I need to get clarification because this individual may consistently not be very clear, not be very concise in what it is that they're saying. So I need to kind of take a clarifying position in order for me to really understand what it is. It might be his boss, it might be a colleague, who knows. But he needs to get that clarified in order for him to be able to walk away and really understand what it was that the person was trying to tell him. All right. So let's look at what communication is. And it really comes down to a couple of the things that we've already discussed. And that would be the fact that communications or conversations are just that. They're conversing. And you're having a conversation in writing or verbally as a means of building relationship, as a means of bonding. Now, nonverbal plays huge here. So let's kind of take it out of the workplace and even in your social life. So if you happen to be out and you're socializing with friends, and maybe you're at a party, or maybe you're at a restaurant, or whatever the case might be, how you're even, sitting, posturing, how you're standing, how you're leaning in or sitting back, how your facial expressions are speaking volumes, not only to the person across from you or whomever it is that you're in a circle with, so to speak, but also all the people around you. So people can sense, even on their approach. Say you're in a restaurant, and the waiter or waitress is coming over to you. They can immediately sense from your nonverbal body language exactly, how you are going to kind of behave and act and communicate, by simply observing you, even for a split second. If you walked into a business meeting, and even before people are sitting down, or maybe some are sitting down, some are standing up, people in the room already can sense by your body language, your nonverbal communication, kind of, what type of mood or state of being are you going to be in during that meeting. So if you are a leader and you have a team, or even if you don't have a team, but you have peer mates, or maybe you're in a meeting with your boss and others, you really want to recognize that communication is all about bonding, building relationships, connecting with others in order to influence what it is that you are trying to achieve. And therefore, be sure that you're understanding that conversing is all about bonding, verbally and non-verbally. All right. And then we've talked about ask questions, even with that comic cartoon. It's ensuring that whether you're giving information or receiving it, there should be questions always being asked, because communication is about curiosity. It's about interest. It's about getting to know. It's about being informed. It's about informing. It's about learning something new. And so even if you're the giver of information, you might want to pose some questions to the receivers to ensure, like we talked about previously, about confirming that their understanding, confirming their agreement, confirming their buy-in, making sure that they do understand, and if not, what questions might they have. And so a question could be, does anyone have any questions, right? So asking questions also speaks volumes to the receiver that you are interested, you are curious, you are wanting to bond and build a relationship, and not just spew information. And then, of course, there's listening. Now, this might sound very academic. Of course, I listen. I'm in a communication. Of course, I listen. Well, even during this conversation, even during this sharing of information, are you drifting off? Are you questioning what it is that's being said? Are you trying to think of, if you were actually engaged in a open forum during this, you might even be thinking about, okay, what can I say? What question can I ask? How can I look smart? How can I look, engaged or interested? And so you're all in your head and you're not actively listening. So you truly, truly are learning and wanting to understand, and are curious and interested in what's being said to you. Definitely take that home, because we often take our personal, especially love relationships, family relationships, those closest to us, we take a lot of that for granted. And we'll be doing something and we're listening, out of one ear, and then we're totally off in space on the other. And yeah, we're listening, but we really haven't heard. So the next thing you're hearing is, are you listening to me? Did you hear what I had to say? And you're like, but when you actually weren't listening, actively listening for interest, curiosity, informing, whatever the case might be. So listening is definitely something you want to be practicing on a regular basis. When you're across the table from someone, across the phone from someone, across an email from someone, are you actively listening to what it is that they're saying so you can respond accordingly? I know in my past, I was very reactionary when it came to email. And that's a conversation, remember? So, but I was very, very reactive. So I'd get an email and then I'd immediately want to shoot something off. Maybe I wanted to shoot something off because I wanted them to understand that I have my position on something, or that I am responsive, whatever the case might be. Or I did want to, make it look as if my service level agreement in responsiveness is high. And so I would, just immediately react. And then the next thing you know, I'm kicking myself because I really didn't take the time to either complete the response that was being asked for, or I didn't look at my spelling, my grammar, my structure of the conversation. And I really kind of came off as if I wasn't really listening, I was just reacting. So listening isn't just by the ear. When it comes to texts and emails, it's also by the eyes and the taking in and understanding of it. So listening to understand is critical. And then of course, communication is about informing. And informing comes in so many ways. It's not just informing on kind of what it is that we're doing, what the next steps are, what our status is, but we're also informing even socially about ourselves. Again, curiosity, interest, building relationships, bonding. It's about informing, who are we not, what interests us, what, kind of inspires us, but what drains us. So informing comes in so many different means of not means of communication, but types of communications, that you're always looking to inform. And I would say inform to influence, because of the fact that even though you might not be looking for something consciously out of a communication, maybe there isn't a next step, maybe there isn't a response that you needed, maybe you're just, sharing information, but you want to influence the fact that that other party is learning something, is understanding something, is being informed of something, is, gaining something out of that communication. So influencing through informing goes way beyond, maybe you have an agenda, you have an objective, you have a goal, you have an outcome that you're looking for, and therefore you're positioning your communications in such a way that you get what you want. Influence goes beyond that. It's simply also to influence just this relationship that is established or building from the very beginning, even when it's with a complete stranger. And, like I'll use that example that we used in another module, where you receive something, you receive a package that you ordered, and it cost a good amount of money, and it was broken. And you immediately need to get with customer service. So you pick up the phone, and then we talked about the fact that you can either react in a very aggressive, abrasive way without that relationship bonding, without that greeting, without that introduction of the topic, so forth and so on. Or you can kind of leverage the structure of a true conversation, and you could position it to be like, hi, Joanne, is that your name? Customer service. I have this issue. I need your help and support. And, therefore, this is what's happened. What can be done about it? So you're influencing, even with a complete stranger, how the outcome of that communication is going to take place. So inform to influence. And then, of course, communication should be about clarity and focus all the time. It should be about clarity. Even if you're storytelling, even if you're standing on a stage, even if you're in the middle of a social group that you're, having a conversation with, let alone if you're in a business meeting giving a status update, or sitting across the table from someone and giving them difficult news. You want to ensure that you're always being very clear and you're focused on that topic of conversation. And a number of us, included, can often, fall victim to the squirrel. And the next thing you know, you're not present in the conversation, and things are slipping through the cracks, and you're missing parts of the information, which then may leave you confused and frustrated and stressed and anxious, so forth and so on, let alone the other party, if you're the one not being clear and focused. Okay. Now, of course, communications, verbal and nonverbal, and in writing, all your communications should always look to inspire, to develop, to grow, to enrich someone, even in the most kind of academic, tactical, technical, work communication. Even if it's an assignment of a task, or even if it's a following up on a status of something, and maybe that status isn't going well. And you need to follow up to kind of find out, why are we off track? Why has this thing totally, taken a left turn? You still want to inspire to develop not only the relationship, but an individual. So even the hardest of information being conveyed can still be uplifting to someone based on how you position it. You might have to sit someone down, and after your greeting and after a little bit of small talk, you might have to say, we have to discuss this because, this isn't working. But yet from that conversation, it's not just a barrage of statements that you would want to be making. You would want to be, kind of informing this individual of the various situations, specific with scenarios, specifics with facts, specifics with situations they can put themselves into and realize what their role was in that situation. And then you want to be, again, inspiring to develop. Even if you're letting that person go, you want to let them go with, the fact that if you were to work on this, and this, are you clear as to your role and the outcome as a result of the actions that you took? Are there things that you would have done differently or will do differently going forward? Even though I'm needing to, make a change here and let you go, you definitely have opportunities to work and focus. What you see where I'm going? Words don't have to just tear down, and even in difficult, trying, stressful, elevated situations, your words and your communications, written, non-verbal and verbal, can still inspire to teach, to coach, to mentor, to develop somebody. Okay. And then, of course, your communication should affirm in taking action. So there's many parts of your communication, not all, where you're looking to influence someone doing something about something. It might even be that they have to go and get information, but there's an action that you want from someone. It's not just a, hey, FYI, blah, 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 blah. So you want to ensure that your communication is put in such a way where they actually take the action of whatever it is that you need them to do. They're not confused. It's not wishy-washy. It's not vague, but it's specific to, okay, Joanne, I need you to follow up with Joe on this, and can you get it to me by, day end tomorrow, so forth and so on. So your communications, in many cases, you also want to assure that they're affirming any action that needs to be taken, or any action that has been taken. So someone follows up with you and they give you a status and they have taken the action. Maybe it's not complete. So you respond saying, okay, so how about this? You don't necessarily need to say, well, you're still missing X, Y, and Z. You could say, all right, I'm seeing that X, Y, and Z is still not taken care of. What's the timeline for getting me that information, or for taking that and completing that task? So you're also looking to ensure that all your communications, whatever they might be, is affirming any action they need to take, any follow through, any gaps, any next steps. All right. And then, of course, we've talked about the fact that all communications, verbal, nonverbal, written, by whatever means, meaning whether it's text, phone, voicemail, email, or face-to-face, even on video, you should be leading by example through your communications. If you are speaking to other people short, abrupt, almost like that guy in the comic pointing your finger, or even figuratively, don't be surprised when people respond to you in such a way. I mean, remember, what you put out, you're going to receive back. So if you want them to kind of be just as respectful, just as complete, just as full of integrity, and a leader, no matter at what level of the organization they are, you need to lead by example and set that example in your own communications. And then, of course, you want to own your communication. You want to be accountable to whatever the situation might be, whatever action you were to be taking, whatever work you were to be doing, whatever communications that you sent out, whatever information you provided, whether it was complete or incomplete, good or bad, abrasive or respectful. You need to own it, and you need to be accountable to it. We all are human. We've talked about that. We're not robots, we're human. So there are going to be times when our emotions get into our communications. And we talked about the fact that, we're going to bring our beliefs, our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts, and our words into the workplace from our outside world, and vice versa. We go home, with everything that just went on in our workplace. So we have to own and be accountable to whether or not we allow those beliefs and emotions, thoughts, feelings, and words that might, be highly charged, that might be dramatic, that might be escalated, that might be stressed or overwhelmed or fearful, whatever the case might be. We need to recognize that if we then convey or communicate in any way, shape, or form that reflects and projects all of that junk, then we have to be responsible and accountable to the reaction from the other party, whether it be your boss, a colleague, a peer, an employee, a family member, a loved one, a friend, whatever the case might be, even a stranger. How many times have you been so in your head and so kind of overwhelmed or stressed or fearful or angry, and the poor woman at the grocery store, or the guy at the post office, or the dry cleaners, got the wrath of your mood, right? So just recognize that you're accountable to your communication and how you handle those beliefs, emotions, feelings, thoughts, and words. Okay. Now, what communication is not? So if I were someone, I'd be printing this off and I'd be putting it in a place where I can look at it. And I would use it almost as a self-assessment. How do I do over in the what it is column? How do I do what it isn't? Because some of us are, kind of guilty and, and or we're victims of the isn't. And therefore, what do I need to work on? So we, as we've talked about, conversations are not one-sided. They go both ways. And even announcements, even directives, even delegations, assignments, they're not just one way. You have to expect and plan for the fact that someone's going to respond to that with a question, with confusion, with a disagreement, with follow-up information, whatever the case might be. It's not one-sided, especially when you realize that communication is bonding, even with yourself, because how we communicate to others actually starts within us, how we're talking to ourselves, what those beliefs, emotions, thoughts, feelings, and turned into words are that we talk to ourselves. That's what we are then projecting. And that conversation isn't one-sided. I mean, I don't know about you, but have you ever been driving down the road and all of a sudden you're realizing that you're kind of talking to yourself and not in, the best of ways, and you're telling yourself to shut up, or you're telling yourself something different, or you're changing up the words to kind of get you out of that state of being, so it's not one-sided, even with ourselves. Okay. And it's not, communication cannot come from a lack of curiosity or interest. That doesn't mean that you agree or you like, anything and everything that other people are saying to you. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you're respecting the other person's information enough to be curious and interested in whether or not it is something that you'll respond to, that will influence you, that you do like, that you are interested in, or you're not. So it's helping you kind of make a decision of where you are. And then there's some things that, whether it's interesting or, you're curious about it, it's your job or your role or your expectation or your responsibility. And therefore, the acceptance of it. All right. But communication isn't, kind of showing up with a total lack of curiosity or interest. And especially we talked about this, with the listening, active listening, but it's also not just with the expectation of saying something to be heard. Yes, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be understood. But talking or communication is not just wanting and waiting to talk so you can say something, so you can appear important or smart or involved or included. It's not just so you can be heard when it's not appropriate for you to be heard. It's not time, it's not your place, whatever the case might be. So we really want to ensure that when we are, in a position where we are the listener, that we are active, we're present, we're interested and curious, regardless of the outcome. And we are not just sitting there kind of going in our head, okay, what am I going to say? How can I look smart? How can I look important? That's not what it's about. Okay. And again, it's not speaking just to simply talk. Now, that it's funny that I should be saying that, being that I'm even here just simply talking to you and speaking just to simply talk. However, there's that uniqueness or distinction. And yet, if I was with a group of people, even in a virtual environment like this, I would certainly be presenting this and then sitting back and going quiet and ensuring that other people can contribute and do contribute into the conversation. And of course, communication is not meant for confusion and frustration. And I can't tell you how often my coaching clients will come to me and they'll be like, oh gosh, I'm just constantly confused or frustrated by, just the lack of information, the lack of detail, or the lack of clarity in this person's communications with me. And so I'm like, okay, but what are you doing, in order to ensure that you have all the completeness, all the details, all the specifics, so you're not confused and frustrated. And this goes back to even an earlier conversation in another module about coaching. If you have someone who's consistently causing you confusion or frustration because of what they say or don't say, then it's your job and responsibility, so it lessens your frustration, to then kind of offer it up that, oh, this observation, this perception, this is what is happening, because the other person is not looking to intentionally want to confuse or frustrate somebody. They're truly not. Yet they may not recognize in themselves that that is being created unless someone points it out to them. So it's up to you to ensure that you're filling in the blanks and you're getting the completeness that you need. But at the same time, you might be offering coaching to that other person as to what they may be, creating, most likely unconsciously. Okay. Now, of course, please hear this. Please hear this. Communication is not about judging, diminishing, or critiquing someone. Yes, everyone has an opinion. Yes, everyone, there is free speech. You have the right to say anything it is that you want about whatever it is that you feel. But if you are a leader, which is a common thread in our conversation about powerful communication, if you are a leader and you want to influence, you want to inform, you want to motivate, you want to inspire, you want to develop, you want to be positive, you want to be consistent, be meaningful, all of those things that really make up a true leader, then the last thing that your communication should be doing in any way, shape, or form is judge, diminish, or critique someone. Now, critiquing is not critiquing is not avoiding giving constructive feedback. Okay, constructive criticism, but I hate the word criticism. So it doesn't mean that everything's sunny and roses in your communications, because it's not. That's not what life is about. At the same time, there's a way to, deal with the harshest of situations, the most difficult of conversations, or the most difficult behavior or actions of another party, without judging, diminishing, or critiquing them in such a way that it makes them feel less valued, small, unimportant. It's just not where leaders are. And keep in mind too, when an individual is happy and confident and sure of themselves, and and stable in who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing it, they have no need to judge, diminish, or critique someone, to bully or to hate on, or to um, you know, demoralize someone. Happy, confident, secure, stable individuals just don't do that. They have no need to do that. So if you're ever in that space where you are judging or diminishing or being a bully or being abrasive or curt or aggressive with someone, and aggressive in the negative way, not the positive way, then you need to look at whether or not you're feeling confident or secure or stable or bold in who it is you are at that moment in time. Because the only reason why you'd be spewing any type of judgment or diminishment or, hate is because something in your world's a little off balance and not where you want it to be, and therefore you're projecting it onto others. But certainly not, well, certainly nowhere. But the workplace, is not a place for that. And a leader does not do that. And if that's your mode of operation, then you need to question, you need to question whether or not it's working for you, whether or not it's going to, help you in the long run, whether or not it's what your people deserve from you and what the company deserves from you. And then you need to make a decision to seek help and support and coaching to, move you beyond that. All right. Communication is not provoking in action. So what I mean by this, and I get a question about it quite often, especially when I raise it up purposely, but there are some communications that are meant, even conscious, to kind of get someone to kind of stop. And this kind of falls into the judgment, diminishing, or critiquing, to where, someone actually, consciously or subconsciously, let's give somebody the benefit of the doubt. They will say or do something, nonverbal, do something that they want that person to question themselves, to doubt themselves, to recognize, that they might not be capable of something. And sometimes I'll get, when I see it in a client, sometimes I'll get a response like, well, I just needed to prove a point to them, or I needed them to learn a lesson. And I'm like, no, leaders don't do that. Yes, you need to, teach someone a lesson, but you need to do it in a way that's going to develop and inspire them and enrich them, not to, again, make them seem small or diminished or, lesser value. That's not what a leader does. So your communications in no way, shape, or form should provoke inaction. Someone not doing someone not believing in themselves, someone not moving themselves forward, someone not building themselves up. And this is tremendously evident in the entrepreneurial world when it comes to, say a gathering of individuals that are in the same business, same industry. So I'll give you an example that when I set out and started my own business in 2008, what I did for the first 6 to 9 months is I didn't look for business. I didn't look for clients. And I was starting my coaching consulting business at the time. And I wasn't looking for clients. What I wanted to build a network of strategic partners, of affiliates, of other vendors, other coaches doing very similar work that I was doing, that I can then engage in the work my clients needed. But more importantly, I wanted to know other coaches, other consultants in the space that I was in, because I don't ever work with just anybody. And so if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, I'd love to work with you. I have this situation, or I have this problem, or I have this project or strategic initiative, and I would love for you to work on it with me. And if I, kind of qualify them, and I recognize that, no, we're not going to be a good fit for whatever the reason might be, then I never want to say no to my client or to my employee or to my vendor or to my, strategic partner. I never want to say no. I want to be able to say, I don't know that this is a good fit, or I know it's not a good fit. And therefore, I'd like to recommend you to Joe or Sally or Sam. And therefore I can pull out, a business card and I can give it to them. Right. So I had, at the time, I was running around pretty much Atlanta at the time. I was pretty much running around, introducing myself to every coach and consultant in Atlanta. And I would get like these coaches and consultants just like, what do you mean you want to talk to me? Why do you want to talk to me? You're in the same business that I'm in. Why are you, why are you looking to, learn more about me? Are you trying to steal what it is that I do, or how I do it, or the type of clients that and I'm just like, whoa, back up. My communication in no way, shape, or form to you was to, all of a sudden cause you to shut down and get defensive and get, feeling lack and desperate. And so, and I'll fast forward for you in that when I built what I called my 76 grid, and I'll save for another day. But when I did build this strategic partnership grid of all these people that I can be engaging with my clients or the not clients, 2 or 3 years later, I had several of those people coming back to me going, oh, wait a minute, I'd love to be part of your network. And I was just like, I'm sorry, but too late. So, our communication is not meant to provoke inaction. Okay. Our communication is not to be forced or dictated or dumped. So, you might often hear there's a difference between delegating and dumping. And there's bosses that dump versus delegate. And what I mean by that is they don't really have intentional, thoughtful process for actually assigning or delegating the work that needs to get done. They just need the work done and they just start dumping it on people as people even pass by their office, or the first person who calls them, all of a sudden gets, dumped on with, some work and tasks that maybe the boss doesn't want to do, or a peer doesn't want to do, or even an employee doesn't want to do, or the fact that, they just want it assigned to somebody. And so, your communications is not meant to point the finger. It's not meant to be forceful or dictatorial. And it's not meant to dump. Leaders don't do that. Leaders inform, influence, delegate, assign, communicate what it is that they need. Okay. And then, of course, what communication is not is deflecting or blaming. And give this some really important, thoughtful, intentional consideration as to whether or not, when was the last time you deflected responsibility, accountability, your role in something? When's the last time you blamed somebody else or something else? Even if it's, say you're late on delivering a product, or finishing up a project for someone. What was the reason, explanation for that delay? Was it that you owned it, declared it, and stated that, what, I screwed up, I didn't plan for it right, so forth and so on? Or did you kind of even deflect it, not on someone, but something? Oh, well, the dog ate my homework. Exaggeration, but, or, that my system went down for a few hours, so I couldn't get that email out. Or, you got the picture. So, leaders, true leaders, and effective, powerful communications is all about owning it, declaring it, taking accountability for it, being responsible, being honest. Remember all those other things that we talked about in another module. So it's not to deflect or to blame. So again, you could be using this as an assessment. Taking this slide, putting bulleted boxes next to each of them, kind of stating where you're at today, as far as, do I recognize that conversations is for bonding or for clarity to develop other people? Am I falling on the side of, that I am sitting there waiting to talk and, you know, and not hearing the conversation? Am I not totally present? Am I making judgment or diminishing? Am I, kind of causing confusion? And, it's all about just having information and self-awareness of where you are with something. And so you can, print this off and simply, consider where are the areas that you need to work on and you want to improve upon. And you will even want to coach and support other people, even whether it be your employees, your peers, even your bosses, as to how communications could be made so much more effective, so much more powerful, so they get the result that everyone's looking for, and therefore everyone's successful. And isn't that a great win-win? All right, powerful conversations, powerful communications, and the what is and isn't of powerful communications. So I will see you soon.